Welcome into the opening line report with Teddy Covers, Drew Martin here in Las Vegas, Nevada, breaking down college basketball, NBA, little NFL talk, maybe even a little college football talk. Teddy Covers, happy Monday morning to you.
Hey, great to be here, Drew. And I'll tell you what, one of the things I love about this show, during the regular season, all right, we're scripted. You know, we're going to go through every NFL line every week and talk about where we think the number's going to go. That's why it's called the opening line report.
Yeah.
When it comes to the NFL offseason, we have a lot more leeway. There's a lot less scripted. You know, we talk about some of the future market. We talk about some of the big moves. We talk a little college hoops. We talk a little NBA. So from a prep standpoint, during season, dude, I'm going crazy. I got 3 pages of notes. Today, I got no notes, man. So happy to answer questions. If you want to ask in the chat, happy to respond to tweets, and of course, happy to go wherever you want to lead us today, Drew. So let's talk the opening line report, off-season style. Ready to roll, my friend. How was your Valentine's Day?
It was good, actually, Teddy. You know, it was more during the day type thing and a little bit more relaxing. But to tell you the truth, it was good. And hopefully you and Mrs. Covers enjoyed the 2/14 day.
Yeah, of course. So it was really funny. We went out to Caramade reservations at some nice sushi joint, you know?
Yeah.
So we go in there and we're sitting down and Kara goes off to the bathroom for a minute. And the waiter comes over. He's like, dude, Teddy. He's like,
no way.
Oh, yeah. He was sweating out the end of the T-Wolves Raptors game, which ended up staying under by a half point. And he wanted to sweat it with me. I'm like, hey, dude, this is one night where I'm not sweating games, dude. I'm not, you know. And it was easier not to sweat. I had a big ticket last night on the Lakers Nuggets under, which was essentially dead by halftime. The second half played out just like I thought it was gonna, but the first half was just ridiculous. So your scoreboard watching, trying to look down on your phone while you're having dinner with your wife. I'm like, okay, I'm not sweating this one, I guess. So unfortunately, that was a wrong side from what's been a really good NBA run. But the big ticket last night was no good, and it wasn't. And they kept me alive in the fourth quarter to keep checking, but it didn't get there at the end, unfortunately.
Well, Teddy, that's all right. I'm glad you enjoyed it. You know, you bring up sushi in Las Vegas. I'll tell you this, Teddy, until I moved to Las Vegas, I never was a big fan of eating sushi more than, say, a 3-hour drive from the coastline, just because I was always, worried about how it got to the restaurant. But I'll tell you this, Las Vegas has the best sushi of any town I've ever lived in.
It's really not close, I mean, maybe Tokyo,
but I've never been there.
Yeah, me neither. But in terms of the freshness, the seafood comes to the Vegas restaurant, like they send in the cartons of the salmon and the tuna and the crab and whatever. The seafood's as fresh here as it is on the coast. I mean, literally, we're eating it less than 24 hours after it's been caught.
Yeah.
So it is a good sushi town if you like sushi.
And I've asked them about that because, becoming friends with some of these guys, because you keep going, or at least I do, keep going to the same places that are good, and especially if they're not expensive. And so I become kind of friends with them. A lot of them are Korean or, from Japan, kind of making it. And I ask them that question and they say, well, there's so many plane flights that come in from the coast that the sushi's on the planes there. So it's really a good transition to kind of the ocean to your table. It's very quick to Las Vegas.
Ocean to table, baby. It's not quite farm to table, but yeah. So bottom line, the sushi was good. I enjoyed Valentine's Day. And I'm not trying to harsh on the waiter. He was a real nice guy. I'm like, tonight's not the night I want to. I got to hang out with my wife, dude. I can't sweat your games with you. I can't sweat my games with me.
Teddy, let's hit college basketball first. Love the sushi talk, by the way, but college basketball, NBA guys, then NFL and college football. And by the way, huge shout out to the chat box here. Jave Cash, Jarek Williams, Todd Hilton, Matt in the house got a question. All you guys. So today's the day to kind of fire away here in the chat box. WagerTalk YouTube each and every Monday, 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific time. The opening line report, off-season style. We're hitting basketball, both college basketball and the NBA, and also a little NFL talk and college football as well, as we got some news. Teddy, we got college basketball starting 11 a.m. Pacific. The first game here, Stephen F. Austin versus New Orleans. I don't really have a play on this one. Stephen F. Austin minus 11-point favorites, 152 being the total. But There is a happy hour special here on the East Coast, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific tip that I really like. Murray State, SIU, Edwardsville. It's 841, 842, the rotation number. It looks like Murray State's now been bought up from -10 to -11.5, 138.5 being the total. And guys, this is one that, yes, I do like it today, but I also like it in the future. And it's something that I think we can get a little value here. And it's really fade city on SIU Edwardsville. A lot of times, not a lot of times, in small conference this season, it's kind of given us an extra edge as sports bettors, Teddy, at least in my opinion here. And it's been good out the gate in college basketball in terms of a lot of these small conferences. Their scheduling is really messed up this season, really across all of college basketball, but even more so in the small conferences. They're doing back-to-back games. SIU Edwardsville here, a stat, they had a 33-day layoff due to COVID-19. Then today's game is their 13th game in 25 days. And now they're playing the Murray State Racers, which is a good team in the OVC, on a 3-game win streak. And Murray State, where they struggle, Teddy, is at the free throw line. Every other category, I give them a pretty large advantage over SIU Edwardsville, but they do struggle at free throws. But this isn't really in the price range of a foul fest. Therefore, if it does come down to a foul fest at the end, I usually don't like laying a number with a team shooting under 70% from the free throw line. But at that point, we would have already lost the bet. So I'm not factoring that in as much. I laid it here, 10.5 with Murray State. It's now up to 11.5. Any opinion here on this game?
I certainly wouldn't talk you out of it. And it's not two teams that I follow closely, but I like the concept that you're bringing into the equation, okay? When you have a team, and especially a college team, all right, that has played an extraordinary amount of basketball in a relatively short period of time. And now they're stepping up in class and facing a team that is very willing to play up tempo. You can see margins extend in games like this. And I'm not surprised at all that we've seen the money come from Murray State today. And you bring up an excellent point about that free throw shooting. All right. The point spread range in college hoops where I'm most concerned with bad free throw shooting teams, and I don't want to, you're like tapping the brakes a little bit, when you get in that -6 to -9 range, all right, where you're going to the game's likely going to be close enough, supposed to be close enough, that you're going to have to hit some free throws at the end, and you have to hit those free throws in order to cover. When you start getting into the double digits, and particularly higher than 11, I'm with you conceptually that the free throw shooting deficiencies aren't necessarily as big a factor in games like this than they are with games with slightly shorter point spreads. I want to answer a couple of comments in the chat real quick. First, David Sharp said he was sorry that he tweeted you at dinner. David, the tweets don't buzz the phone, man. It's all good, man. And I appreciate it. Anytime anyone, you tweet me, you have a bad beat or something you want to talk about, tweet me, no big deal. It's not, there's no crisis. So thank you for doing that. Don't apologize at all. It's fine. And there was one other, Matisse was asking the most memorable bet from your past. That's a hard question. And like the most, there's so many of them that stand out. It's like so someone's saying, okay, what's the most memorable bet of your career? I have a really hard time with that.
Really? Okay.
No, I could probably, actually, that's not. I do remember because it was the bet. It was the game that I learned that you really, when I moved out to Vegas, my concept was straight bet and flat bet. All right. That you get hurt when you step up your units. And that was the mentality that I had. And I can tell you the game was a preseason game. It was at the time they were the Washington Redskins, and they were facing the San Francisco 49ers.
In the preseason.
Yeah, in the preseason. It was Steve Spurrier's first game as the Redskins head coach.
Tricky
handicap. And it was Mariucci was the 49ers coach. And the game it was a preseason opener, I think even before the Hall of Fame game, and it was in Tokyo. The line opened San Fran -3. And I'm reading the quotes, and Mariucci's like, yeah, we're going to go and check out Osaka. We're going to go, no interest in playing whatsoever. All right. It was all like, yeah, we're going to, I forget if they were the defending champs or they were they were a perennial playoff team. And Spurrier's like, we're going to win. This is my first game. I don't know anything about preseason games. I'm going to win. And I made a bet at the time, my standard unit size on Washington plus the 3.
Okay.
The game closed Washington -3. They won the game 38-7. It wasn't even a game. Washington was absolutely the right side. My info was there. I had the best of the number, and I made one standard unit size play. And from that, I learned, you know what? When you got good info, it's okay to step it up. You're allowed to bet. Now, to this day, I'm not betting 10 times on what I bet on a standard unit on one of these, but to have a step up unit size or a very much step up unit size is perfectly reasonable, and that's a lesson that I learned from that bet, and I'll never forget it. You have a memorable bet that like the most, and I don't know why I'm like that's the most memorable bet of my career. There's so many, but that's one that really like I remember seeing the info going, this line is just wrong, and not trusting myself to believe that the line was wrong.
Yeah, Teddy. No, I do as well. But I mean, one thing I take away from what you said is yes, if you got good info and you trust it, it's putting you in the right position to bet, it's okay to bet a little bit more. But what would worry me about that bet, Teddy, is I've had trouble with kind of juggling that many balls. First of all, it's Steve Spurrier's first game and it's a preseason game, not to mention it's in Tokyo. That's just a lot of balls to be like, man, what is this all going to mean? That's what would kind of make me pump the brakes on that bet.
Yeah. But from a preseason perspective, and again, in preseason NFL, there are things you look for. One of the things you look for in preseason NFL is a coach interested in winning the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Spurrier was interested and Mariucci wasn't, and Mariucci was favored.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean that regardless of the how many balls are in the air, there's always balls in the air. There's always multiple factors to consider. But that was one that stood out. We also got a question about the two banners behind us. All right, mine is from the Westgate Superbook, right? Yours is too, right?
Yeah, no, mine is too.
Yeah, mine's from the just different times. Yours is newer than mine. Mine's old.
Yeah, mine's from right under the new screens. Click, with an upward angle there. And Teddy, is yours a remake though? Is that the real look of the Westgate, or is this just the numbers came from the Westgate and you just and you got it reprinted?
So I have a friend, Alf Mosqueda. You may remember his name or not. The guy's he's a really good bettor. A pro, a really good bettor. But he was also an amateur photographer, and he would take all these pictures. And he took a bunch of pictures of the Racing Sports Book at the Westgate when it opened. And I asked him if I could use one of them and blow it up. So mine is actually blown up into a banner behind me, so it just sits behind me all day. Every time I'm on air, I got it. And one of these days, I got to get a new one because I feel like it's dated. It's dated a little bit now. It's time. One of these days, but it was a pain in the ass to make. It's a pain in the ass to get a new one. So that'll be a summer project. It's not anything I'm going to do during season. Okay.
We got Lonnie in here with one, and I think we're okay going over this, but I smoked a joint and came up with cross sports parlays, Teddy. I have a comment on this because, just going down the road of not being sober in betting, I'm not a big fan of that, Teddy. I've done it in the past in my younger days, but when I'm firing away on games and I'm doing this seriously, I tend to do it in the morning with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and have all of my, senses with me. I'm not a big fan of not being sober and betting into games.
No, I mean, look, the worst results, when people have the disastrous days, or disastrous weekends, where, you've been betting and grinding out a profit, or maybe you've been losing a little bit. But you're not, you still have a bankroll to work with. And then all of a sudden on Monday morning, you wake up, you have no freaking bankroll left. I'm not going to say it happens every time when you're drinking or smoking or whatever. And I think,
they're kind of different, but
they are, because the exuberance from drinking is not the same as the, hey, let's chill when we're, getting stoned necessarily. But the decision-making process, I'm with you on clean and sober when you're betting. 100% of the time, literally, and that has served me well over the years. And I've watched enough other people struggle betting when they're not clean. And again, there's some people that they smoke pot every day. They smoke pot when the morning to night, and that's just. I've met plenty of people like that. I know people like that now, and that's how they function. Is they function stoned. That's their anti-anxiety medicine that you take in the morning. And the people that are walking around all day, every day stoned, it's just how you are. So I wouldn't say, you can't ever bet ever. But if you're partying, you don't want to be betting. They don't mix very well.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I'll even take it a step further, Teddy, before we get to the NBA here, guys. I'm not a big fan of like last second getting everything together, getting some information and betting away on that game. For whatever reason, I know a lot of people are different. I like to kind of take my time, bet a game pregame, and stick with that side or total. I'm not a huge fan of like, it's 6:30 on the East Coast and it's a 7 p.m. tip. Here, get your information. I'm pretty sure this is right, and firing away on it. I've tended to do a lot better when I have a lot of time to think. Even betting the night before into the openers, that's where I have a way better winning percentage. Any thoughts on that?
Sure. I mean, if you're working a full time. A job, if you're working a job, you're working 9 to 5, you're working whatever, you don't have a ton of time to handicap, and it is what it is. I find that I do my best work when I'm taking 3 looks at every game. I'll go through them hard the night before, every night before. Part of my process the night before is you go through every game the next day, every single one of them, before you go to bed. And from there, I make my short list. Then in the morning, the lines are going to come out for all the games that didn't. You're going to take a second hard look and decide which games you're going to pull the trigger on right away, which games you're going to go for the clients. Then the third time is that time right before tip-off, that last hour before tip-off when the players in and out are official. As a service standpoint, I don't do a whole lot then. As a bettor, absolutely you get involved that last hour. Between 3 and 4 p.m. on the West Coast or 6 to 7 on the East Coast. It's a constant process. And I do my best work when I'm looking at these games 3 times, as opposed to, if you're looking at it once, sometimes you miss some of the nuance. So the fact that the games that I'm interested in, I'm looking at multiple times throughout the day, I think it helps my process. Before we shift over to NBA, I do want to ask, there's a question from G. Nellis asking, do you guys think the Seminoles got the rust off against Wake and will perform better tonight? That's a really interesting game. And part of me, part of me thinks that's a tough matchup for the Florida State style. And part of me thinks that, Virginia is going to beat teams like North Carolina, who they match up really well against. But Florida State is not an easy matchup for that Virginia team. I don't think it is at all. Hard game for me. What about you?
Fascinating matchup here, Teddy. Prime time, East Coast, 2 ACC teams, the top 2 ACC teams by my account anyway. 128 being the total, by the way. FSU minus 1.5 point favorites at home in Tallahassee. It's just a huge contrast of styles in my handicapping here, Teddy. And a lot of it is, in my opinion, going to have to do who's kind of dictating the pace. Of course, we got UVA. I believe they're the slowest team in the country, if not one of the 3 slowest teams. Top 15 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. And FSU, 115 in terms of up and down the court, their offensive pace. And also key here, like Nellis is inferring in his comment, it's their second game back from the layoff, and their first game against Wake, who's not as talented of a team as Virginia, did go to overtime. I'm not so sure they got all the rust off. It kind of brings into another question outside of just this matchup handicap, which FSU has, they're long, they're strong, they're athletic. They're the more, if you just looked at these 2 teams, you'd be like, oh my gosh, FSU is going to win this game. But UVA is a team I don't like betting against, Teddy. I really don't. I think that they're, obviously very well coached, good shooters, very efficient. They play pack line defense. I actually kind of like the underdog here, Virginia, just the more tempered team. But I'm not involved from a side perspective here, Teddy. I do think kind of Virginia is going to control the tempo, and I would look for a lower scoring game. But again, this isn't a game that I bet. What I would come back to, Teddy, is like we saw Michigan versus Wisconsin. We've seen some teams this year come back from long layoffs in college basketball and not look good at all. And we've seen others kind of come back and look pretty good. That's where I would come into this handicap, like you're asking here, Nellis. And to tell you the truth, I'm not really sure about Florida State.
Yeah, and I'll say this. Virginia controls tempo.
Mm-hmm.
If Virginia doesn't control tempo, they lose. If this game goes over, it's not good news if you have a Cavaliers ticket in your pocket. Elliot V's asking, Drew, you look different for some reason. I think it's the new glasses, man. They just look sharp on you.
It is the glasses. It's the Blu-ray glasses. I was getting headaches from kind of just looking at a computer so long, throughout the day. And sure enough, the doctor said, we'll try out some of these glasses. And it's worked, Teddy. So if anybody's having headaches, kind of looking at Excel spreadsheets all day, I do recommend Blu-ray glasses. If you just Google them, they're not too expensive. So that's one thing that I would recommend. We got Elliot also saying my memorable bet was yesterday, $900 on the Pelicans. Shake my head. Yeah, that's a tough one. My memorable bet, Teddy, before we do get to the NBA, was right after you, ER, and Lang hired me. I had a lot of kind of I guess you could say I was ready to roll the dice a little bit, and I didn't have much money at all in my bank account, and I ended up betting $2,000, which back then was a lot of money. Percentage-wise of my bankroll, actually percentage-wise of my total net worth, was a little bit too much, and it was Georgia Southern at Idaho, the Vandals in the Kivy Dome, in a Sun Belt action, which Idaho isn't in the Sun Belt. They're not even in Division I football anymore. And what I was breaking it down, I had all the, a lot of time to break this game down, Teddy. And Idaho was just not very good at tackling. And of course, Georgia Southern ran the triple option down their throats. And I was like, man, Georgia Southern, lay the 17 with Georgia Southern. And it was my biggest bet of my life up until that point. And I'm watching the game, streaming it. It's obviously not on ESPN. And I'm sweating because they're driving the ball, but they keep getting penalties inside the red zone and kicking field goals. And it was like a 10-point game going into the fourth quarter. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose this bet. Sure enough, they ran in a couple touchdowns at the end. But the thing I wanted to point out here is the number went like way against me. It was 17, and I'm going in at the time. Bet Online was doing the openers, and I'm like 500. All of a sudden, it's like, I'm getting 17, and then, I'm only having to lay 14. By the way, somebody was obviously going against me. It turned out to be Raz at the time, who was a very good sports bettor back in the day. And, I won the bet, and I'm like, oh, it was great. But I was just sweating too much. And it was one thing I learned even by winning it. Don't bet too much on any one game.
Yeah. So that's funny. My memorable bet is bet bigger when you have a big edge. And your memorable game is don't bet bigger when you don't have a big edge, which is kind of the same thing. Todd Hilton asks, is there a number you look at in college basketball or the NBA like you do in football, the -2.5 or -6.5? The answer is no. The key numbers, at least for me in NBA, the key numbers for NFL, -2.5, -3.5, -6.5, -7.5. In NBA or college hoops, the keyest numbers are 1, 2, and 3 in either of the two sports. That being said, you'll consistently the odds makers doesn't go 3 -120 before they go to 3.5 like they do in the NFL. So it's a question there that I'm not looking for I want the key numbers on my side, but I'm not. The focus on capturing those key numbers like there is in the NFL is not the same in college hoops. Tony A asks, what's the most I won in a day? That's a good question.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to answer that off the top of my head. I don't know.
And I know, it has to be a contest win of one sort or another, I would think. When you have but it's funny because the biggest win days don't stand out the way the biggest losses days do.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know why. I'm sure I could look it up. But honestly, Tony, that's a question that I probably should know, but I don't. All right, let's keep it rolling.
Teddy, we got guys, make sure to check out Sports Memo and WagerTalk.com. $9 Monday. We got some key games up there. By the way, if you want to read my Murray State free play, it is up SportsMemo.com. Handicapper page Drew Martin, Murray State -10.5. Detailed analysis there. We got some other games on the card. We just broke down Virginia, Florida State. A big one tonight in terms of Texas Tech TCU just got postponed. Never mind. Did have a bet on that one on the under. I thought Texas Tech was going to control the pace. So if they do reschedule that in the future, guys, that's the side I was looking.
That's pushed to tomorrow, and the venue has switched. The venue,
okay,
but that game will be on. It got switched to Tuesday, and It is now going to be, where was it supposed to be today? It's at the opposite school tomorrow. Is all.
It's supposed to be in Fort Worth, TCU.
Yeah, and tomorrow the game will be played in Lubbock.
Okay. Well, Teddy, you want to make the transition here to the NBA? Utah Jazz 15-1-1 run. Their last 17 games. Man, they're pretty hot. They beat the Heat, who was also kind of finding their traction there in South Florida. But where do you want to take this in the NBA, man?
So the concept with the opening line reporters, we're looking for where numbers are going to move. As we talk on a daily basis in the NBA, it's not necessarily, right now, the NBA money has been basically purely from a wise guy perspective, from a market moving perspective, been all injury related. Who's sitting, who's not sitting, who's sitting, who's not sitting. What you find in the NBA, and again, a classic example yesterday, Kawhi Leonard sitting for the Clippers. Paul George already out. What happens? The money comes for Cleveland. Of course. Why? Knee jerk. This guy's out, that guy's out. Doesn't matter. Drummond's not playing. And what happens? It's a one-sided game. The Clips had very little trouble. No, that's the wrong game. I'm mixing up two games, unfortunately, in my head. That's what happens when you have Valentine's Day and you're not sitting there watching the games the same way. God, I do the same thing every night, and the one night I change it, and then it messes me up the next day.
That's okay, Teddy. No, wherever you want to go, man. If you want to just head to the NFL, that's okay too. NBA is not one of my fortes, guys. I'm more of the handicapper that's specializing in certain sports, and college basketball to MLB are my two best sports, and they obviously overlap. So in order to take on a new sport, I just don't think it would be smart. So that's the reason I don't bet each and every day in the NBA. However, it's fun to talk about from time to time.
It was Cleveland. It was I was mixing up with the Orlando game for some reason, where the Magic didn't have anyone, but Cleveland didn't have Drummond. But the money, the Clips didn't have their two stars, and the money, knee jerks. That does happens every day. And of course, the Clips, pretty easy, win and cover. That is typical in the NBA. So for tonight, you're talking about Utah, and Utah is absolutely a one-way team to say, "Oh my God, this streak has been going on and on and on." The Jazz, number one, they've done it before under Quinn Snyder. Last year, they had a 14-2 ATS run. This team has done that. Number two, Utah's really good. All right. From a power rating standpoint, you make the case that the Jazz are better than the Lakers, better than the Clippers, better than the 76ers, better than anyone you want them to be. The Bucks. Utah's been that good. The markets aren't necessarily willing to get there. Utah is the type of team you can make money with because they are smaller market. They're not on TV every night, and they don't have superstars. If you're looking for a recipe in the NBA for a team to hold their value, look at a great spread team like Oklahoma City last year. Great spread team. They're there, a great road dog roll. They were road dog. That was their role. When you have the teams without the superstars, without the TV appearances, and without the big markets, they can hold their value indefinitely. And of course, the markets are very, very concerned about Utah. It looks like Embiid is a questionable for tonight. He sat out. He may well play. And if Embiid plays, the money's going to pour in on Philly. All right. Or at least it'll show for Philly. But I wouldn't be surprised if it pours in on Philly because of the one injury. Now, people aren't even noticing that I love the glue guys in the NBA. The off-the-bench guys who never affect the point spread, who absolutely affect their team's results. And Philly's got one of those guys named Shake Milton. Shake Milton? Why do we care about Shake Milton? This is why we care about Shake Milton. The Sixers are 1-4 ATS when Shake Milton doesn't play. He's their instant offense off the bench when he doesn't have it. Their bench has been destroyed the last two games. Destroyed. Milton's not going tonight. So there you have it. So there's one. Couple more questions.
Questions are awesome today.
I really appreciate you guys putting them out there. There was some that stood up.
We got one here in terms of books. Lonnie Smith saying, can you recommend any good reads? He read one from Chris, I believe at WagerTalk. So check that one out, guys. One that I'll put out here with MLB. By the way, pitchers and catchers reporting this week, Teddy. Trading Bases was one that really got me into baseball betting. It's something that I recommend. It's getting a little old, and I don't know how relevant it is for today's college or MLB betting, but it's one that kind of opened my mind to a couple different philosophies in terms of going after MLB betting, and that's called Trading Bases.
Sure, I'll bring up Stanford Wong's book. Sharp. I think it's called Sharp Sports Betting. Stanford Wong's the guy who wrote the book on blackjack, and he wrote a book on sports betting, and it's pretty good. Certainly for the math standpoint, it'll help you a lot with the math. From a storytelling standpoint, Chris Andrews got a great. Then one day. Is a great.
I haven't read it. You've read it?
Oh yeah, I've got. I can't show my camera without messing everything up. But I have the bookshelf. I have a bunch of gambling books in my collection that I picked over the years. And Chris Andrews' book it's very readable. It's perfect in terms of like a light read that gives you some great stories. That's one that absolutely stands out to me. Gene Nella's asked an interesting question, and I've been asked this, and people want to know. And that's why I'm going to answer it. Does the majority of your salary come from client subscriptions or betting yourself? So my goal has always been to pay my monthly bills via clients, by selling plays. So my nut is supposed to be covered from selling plays. My retirement, my IRA, my whatever you want to call it, that's my bankroll, and that's what I bet. So I'm not relying on my bets for my day-to-day income or to pay my mortgage this month or to pay my car payment or whatever. That's the advantage of being, offering clients the service. But for the long-term growth, that's all bankroll. That's all betting. Unfortunately, WagerTalk doesn't have a retirement plan. So at least not yet. Backdrop looks like the 1980s. No, that picture was taken in who asked me that? Elliot. That picture from 2014, I think, or 2015. We also asked, Tony A asked, do you like betting parlays, Teddy? No. I'm a straight better. That said, particularly college football is one thing where I do bet parlays. I bet a handful of underdog money line parlays for most of October. And that's where I'm looking. That's where I go score shooting. You get a bunch of teams that killed a bunch of teams in non-conference plays, and now they're laying 17 in a game that they really should be -3, and they may lose. And I'm getting plus 600 on the money line with the dog. I do take shots with underdog money line parlays. I often round robin them, and that to me, and I'm not, again, from a percentage of bankroll, tiny, but that's where you can hit some scores. That's where you hit your 50 to 1, 100 to 1 shots. And you have one weekend like that, it pays for your whole season. Yeah. And in college football, I so that's one sport where I do. But note what I'm playing: long shot, underdog, big scores. I'm not putting a bunch of favorites together on the money line and saying, "Oh, well, they're all going to win." It's I don't expect to win my parlays. However, I expect to win some of them over the course of the season, college football. But really, college football is the only sport that I play them in. I don't play NBA parlays. Sometimes on a college basketball Saturday, but a lot of times the card's too big on a college basketball Saturday to isolate those. And there's so much going on between Friday when the numbers come out and Saturday. So I don't do a lot in college hoops. Occasionally I'll have a Saturday where I'm putting together a money line parlay on the dogs, but it's mostly college football for me. But on a day in, day out basis, no. And baseball, God, people go crazy with the baseball parlays, betting the favorites and putting the favorites together. When you put your -300 favorite in your baseball parlay, it doesn't increase your payout by that much. It really doesn't. A little bit more. No, I bet dogs parlay together, and that's where I shoot. That's my angle shooting. That's where I go for my scores.
Okay. And Teddy, I'm not much of a parlay guy. I could probably count the number of parlays I've bet in my lifetime on both of my hands. But, an interesting kind of thing that's just kind of coming to my head right now, the Virginia-Florida State game, what you said about if Virginia wins, it likely stays under. And if it goes over, those are something that I wish I had more time to kind of research in terms of if that could be a positive EV, because I think you're going somewhere with it. It's just the parlay, just looking at it from a blimp's view is not a great bet, guys.
No, it's not. But when side and total, there are, and we talk about it a lot during the NFL season, where side and total are related in this one. I'll say that, and that to me is absolutely a side total bet is something that I'll do a fair bit, but that's a 2-teamer. I'm betting one side, one total, same game. When you talk about parlays, I tend to think of the bigger, let's try to hit a 3-teamer or a 5-teamer or whatever, as opposed to the 2-teamers. The only 2-teamers I'll make are side and total in the same game.
Okay. Another question here from Todd. How much does the line movement influence your bet? ? How many point movement would it take to influence your bet?
So that's an interesting, the legendary Lem Banker, good quote, Dean Stevenson. Legendary Lem Banker says, stay away from parlays. As a general rule, yes, there are circumstances where you can do it, but as a percentage of bankroll, parlays have to be small.
Okay.
So Todd, that's a really hard question. How much does the line move influence your bet? It's going to vary by sport.
Yes.
It's going to vary by time of year. In November, early season college hoops, you damn well want to be with the money. All right. And if you lose a point of value or a point and a half of value, you say, good, I'm on the right side of this one.
Mm-hmm.
In February, there's no freaking way I want to be in that spot. Oh yeah, I lost a point and a half of value or 2 points of value on this one. I'm on the right side. It's not the same. So the answer to your question, Todd, is it's all nuance. It's all nuance. And you say, how many point movement would it take to influence your bet? Well, if the line move is based on a reason, let's see. Joel Embiid was supposed to play, and now he's not going to, and Philly's not going to have their guy, and Shake Milton's not in the lineup either. And now we've seen a 2 or 3 point movement. Yeah, that's for a reason. All right, injury info. We see that all the time. Bradley Beal's out, and the line comes up, but it was Washington -1, and the line comes back up, and it's Washington +3.5. That's not a quote-unquote line move per se. But when the line moves multiple points based on opinion, later in the season, I'm much more inclined to fade that.
Teddy, I like what you said there in terms of it depends on the sport, which it does with me. College football and the NFL going from 2.5 to 3. I'm really looking at that in terms of affecting where I'm betting. Whereas, a college basketball total, guys, like Teddy said, it even matters throughout the year. In November and December, you'll see some of these college basketball totals move upwards of 10 points. And a lot of times that's the sharp money, the more knowledgeable money pushing that bet. However, when it gets later in the year, if a college basketball total goes from, let's say it's a high scoring game, 158 to 159.5, I don't really, you always want to be betting good numbers, but it's just percentage of the move is not that much, guys. I would much rather be on the right, look, whatever your bet is, than say, oh my gosh, it moved against me, I'm not going to bet it anymore. I would say no. If you trust your information, like we were talking about before, and bet the game, even if it does move against you.
Yeah, one more that I got to talk about, and I can't see who it was. Gosh darn it. R says, if you bet Chiefs, you don't know football. TB had a stacked team. I bet the Chiefs. I guess I don't know football. I mean, it's easy to say after the fact. It's always easy to say after the fact. And I was dead wrong in that game. Absolutely. Hard game the Super Bowl was. For me again, you have a choice between betting against the best quarterback or betting against the best quarterback. In a regular season game, there's no way I play that contest. I really don't. But I guess I don't know football because I had the wrong side of that one bet. You're going to have wrong sides. You're going to have bad losers. It's inevitable. You can't let one bad loss or a group of bad, to say, all right, well, I stink, I give up. Fight back. I lost that game. Oh.
In baseball, line movement, Teddy, I don't tend to let it affect my bet at all. I don't know if it does for you. Just wanted to bring that up with the prior question as well, because I didn't.
There are a lot of good questions in here today. I feel like I'm having more fun here. We had a kind of a show with what's going on. This was right near the bottom. If you want to put it up there, from Glenn Elliott, man, Drew/Teddy, do you tell your colleagues when they're on a roll? I don't. I bet my own stuff.
Yeah,
that's what I bet.
I don't like, it's one thing like the camaraderie, I'll put a little money, if a guy's on a roll, something like that, Glenn, but it's not like I'm going through the sheet and being like, oh, what's this guy? I don't know, because I've learned this when I first got into the business. Like, you got to watch out where you get your information from. And if you're getting information from here and here and here and here, it really affects your handicap. Whereas I put in the work, I do the research, so I don't want what somebody says to really affect me. Although I do trust other people's opinion in specialized sports. I'm a big guy, like, in terms of specialization. This guy knows this sport. This guy knows this sport. And then listen to what he has to say. But to just strictly go, down the card and be like, oh, he's betting this, he's betting that. I can't say I'm there, Teddy.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't see most of the other. I don't see anybody's plays really. And I don't want to. If I wanted to, I could. I don't want to. I'm going to do. I feel like I do. I'm going to do my best work when I'm in my own little bubble, and I think that there are a lot of bettors out there. When you trust yourself, and it takes a while to be able to trust yourself. For beginning bettors, that's the hardest thing to do.
Yeah,
is to trust yourself, as opposed to you hear something on the radio or you hear someone talking over here and you go, well, he kind of likes that, and you forget. People ask me about all these games and all these teams, and I'm going to give an opinion, but some of my opinions are light, And someone's like, oh, I really like this game, but Teddy kind of said something and I didn't bet it. And then no, dude, trust yourself. That said, in terms of packages, when someone's, look, the time to buy someone is when they're rolling, you get it. Sometimes the games are flying off the page at you and you're seeing things clearly. And you ask any bettor, over the course of the 52 weeks in the year, when do you make your profits? All my profits probably come during my eight best weeks. You know what I mean? Out of the course of the year, if you look at it, 44 weeks I'm breaking even, and 8 weeks I'm kicking ass, and I'll take that. I will. And it doesn't necessarily work out that clearly, but you tend to make the majority of the money that you're going to make during your hot streaks. And I like to run those. I like them when they go, and I like to, when you're on one and you're seeing things clearly, you try to make as much as you can during those periods of time because they're nice.
Amen, Teddy, from Jarek Williams in the chat box. Guys, really appreciate everybody joining us in the chat. It was live, really live today, Teddy, and huge questions. We're going to be doing this each and every Monday, 10 a.m. Pacific start here, the opening line report. Teddy, we're getting up against it, time-wise here, man, but is there anything you kind of wanted to throw out there before we shut this down?
Well, first, I want to congratulate Lance Mania. It says he's 26-3 on overs in the NBA in the last month. That's a heck of a run, buddy. Well done. And Lonnie Smith makes the point. He's like, that's why I can't watch CNBC or Bloomberg. My broker just talked me out of a $5,000 good trade. Yeah, just believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. That's the truth. That's why I'm here. That's why you're here, Drew. I'm sure we're not alone. And it takes time to have that level of confidence. It doesn't happen overnight. But if you bet, and you bet consistently, and you get into good habits and good patterns, it happens sooner than you think.
Absolutely, man. And guys, that's going to have to do it for the opening line report. We're up against it time-wise. We were going to get into a little bit more, and we're going to be talking, college basketball, NBA, maybe even a little college football, FCS. We didn't even talk about Gus Malzahn going to UCF, Teddy. Kind of disappointed about that. We can hit it next week if you want to. But guys out there, for Teddy Covers, I'm Drew Martin. Teddy, any last words here?
I just want to say, so yeah, today we did a bunch of questions from the chat, and I love answering questions from the chat. We will, as it comes into March, we're going to break down the NCAA tournament. We're going to break down the conference tournaments. As we get into April, we're going to break down some NBA players. We're going to break down the NFL draft. There's all kinds of stuff that we're going to talk about. But when we have a loaded chat today and you guys are asking great questions, like I said, I got no notes for today. So it's all good to work a show this way. We really appreciate all the comments. Thank you, Glenn, Elliott, man. Thanks, Frenchie. Have a great day. Enjoy the games. Good luck tonight.
Enjoy the games. Best of luck, guys. Check out WagerTalk, sportsmemo.com, $9 Monday. We'll be back next Monday, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Come back and join us. For Teddy Covers, I'm Drew Martin. Best of luck with your bets, guys.